filming a video and using a teleprompter to speak on camera compared to speaking off the cuff. That's what I want to talk to you about today in my regular morning walk here in Greece, as I want to share the experience that I had yesterday when I filmed a master interview for an upcoming video on my English speaking channel as a non-native English speaker myself. This is a podcast, by the way, and if you're watching it on YouTube, I won't be showing you myself all the time, and I will throw in a loop video of the surroundings of where I'm walking this morning on a Wednesday. It's very cold, it's 2 degrees Celsius today. So, I have been recording quite a few videos on YouTube in a documentary style format, at least I try to, and the major part of a documentary video is the master interview. It's the part where the main character of the video is talking to the camera. Not usually, always, they are interviewing the main character. Usually the producer or the director or the filmmaker is interviewing the main character, and the character of the documentary is answering those questions. That's what a master interview is about, and I have been doing that up until yesterday, based on reading from a teleprompter, where I would read word by word the script, and I would end up with the interview part for editing the timeline on my editing software. Now, yesterday I had this idea to try out and speak over the cuff on camera without a script, without even bullet points, rather than have artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, ask me a few questions based on the topic I had chosen for the upcoming video. That's also a new approach I'm taking when I'm recording these master interviews lately, as the AI is taking the role of the interviewer of the documentary. Anyway, that's a topic for another video. Now back to the teleprompter. So I used the teleprompter up to yesterday. Since as a non-native English speaker, that made my life a lot easier, and I was making sure that I wouldn't say something that I didn't mean to, as I'm trying to put my thoughts into an order in my mind. Usually I'm thinking in my native language, which is Greek, and then I'm trying to translate all this in English on camera. And that's usually a struggle, and not only am I ending up making grammar and syntax mistakes, but I occasionally say things that I didn't mean to, so I have to cut them off in the editing and don't make that much sense, and my speech doesn't make much sense at some points, or most importantly, I might have forgotten something important. You could argue that I could use bullet points, but until now I haven't. So that has been my fresh experience about that. I have only recorded once yesterday without teleprompter. Now, when my wife got back at home, I showed her a previous video I've filmed with a teleprompter and the most recent video that I did yesterday, which is still in the editing process. I showed her the two clips side by side and asked her if she could notice any difference between the two videos. The funny part is that she mentioned how she liked one clip or another based on the image, on the picture, on the colors, on how I'm sitting, on how I am presenting myself. But she didn't mention once that she could tell that I was reading from a teleprompter on the video that I do read from the teleprompter. Once I told her that I was reading from the teleprompter on that specific video, she told me that now that she knew, she suggested that I should be more animatic, I think it's the word. I should move my hands more, I should be more relaxed. Of course, talking with a teleprompter is an art by itself, and I'm trying to improve on that part. And since I'm always in a testing phase, I think the testing phase of a filmmaker never ends. Just like an entrepreneur, you always come up with new problems to solve, and you have to come up with new solutions for other problems that you have already solved before. And that's how I ended up testing out this workflow of me speaking on camera without a teleprompter. Now, was there a specific moment or challenge that pushed me in this direction? Well, it was the challenge of me sounding a bit robotic, and the fact that I didn't feel that comfortable on camera when reading from a teleprompter. That made me test out a recording without one while speaking on camera. I wanted to see if I could pull it off, if I could speak in English without having a script, just the questions. And I can't say that I did such a good work. And since my wife didn't tell the difference, I want to try it again today. But this time I would have prepared the answers that the ChatGPT have asked me about this topic, and I will write the answers down on a script and speak again, reading from the teleprompter, and trying to move my hands and be more relaxed in front of the camera. Since a viewer like my wife couldn't tell the difference, it will make my life easier reading from a teleprompter. Now, do I feel that using a teleprompter affects my natural delivery? Of course I do. I have noticed it myself. Usually I stand quite still while speaking on camera and reading from a teleprompter. That's why I wanted to try it out in the first place, to not read from a teleprompter. The ways I try to appear more natural on camera with a teleprompter is looking right or left from the camera occasionally. But the thing is that the script is in front of the lens, in front of the camera, so I have to keep reading from there. So me looking right or left might seem a bit natural, but now that I have shot yesterday's master interview without teleprompter, I can see that I can notice the big difference in my behavior, on how natural I appear without a teleprompter, because I haven't done so all this time. And now that I did, I can see how much relaxed and not relaxed. I wasn't that much relaxed reading without the teleprompter, because I was thinking about the answers, and it was the first time that I was reading the questions. So some questions were a bit surprising, and they made me think things that I haven't done so, and putting my thoughts into words in a foreign language was a bit stressful. Now, how do I ensure my performance still feels conversational and engaging rather than robotic when reading from a teleprompter? Well, in fact, that starts from writing the actual script, because as they say, you should write like you talk, like you speak. That's a general advice writers give to beginner writers, to write as you speak. So if you have a script that is written in the way you talk, then it would come out a lot less robotic when you're talking. But at the same time, I am on camera, I'm in the frame, so whatever the words that come out of my mouth sound, the thing is that the audience can see myself, how I'm moving and how I'm looking at the camera. And one thing I implemented right from the start when using teleprompters was to have the text as narrow as possible, so that the viewers cannot tell that I'm reading, so that my eyes do not move like when you're reading a book, for example. Instead, it seems like I'm looking always straight in the camera without my eyes moving, apart from moments where I look right or left, trying to appear more natural. Of course, the question now is, how much time do I now spend with my more spontaneous approach compared to scripting and reading from a teleprompter? Now I'm a numbers guy. I put everything down in numbers. I want to track performances. I wanted to track every metric in the book. So I did calculate everything. I did track down all the time that I spent in both ways. So when I was writing a script for a teleprompter, I began writing the script in Greek because since that's a new workflow that I'm implementing, since the coming of AI, I'm now able to translate, to have an almost perfect translation in English based on my Greek writing. Previously, I would have written the script in English and proofread with third-party software, and then turn it into a script and read it from the teleprompter. Now I can write a lot more authentic in my mother tongue and have it translated by the AI so that I can keep the same tone and voice at least as much as possible. Writing a 1600 script in Greek, like I did for yesterday's video, takes me about an hour and a half. Now AI needs about 5 to 10 minutes to translate that, and then reading the script from a teleprompter takes me about 20 minutes or 25 minutes. So it's about 2 hours in total from starting to write up to the point that I have a recording at my hand. And of course, I had to add the time that I need to edit the footage, the master interview, but having a script beforehand makes editing a lot more quicker, I thought at least, because believe it or not, although you have a teleprompter, you have a script, you do make mistakes, and that's not a specific thing of a non-native English speaker. I noticed it when I was also reading a Greek script at times, as I wanted to try out other things. I also made mistakes even when I was talking in my native language. And I suppose even experienced YouTubers and video and content creators and filmmakers and everyone else is also making mistakes in their delivery, despite having a script on a teleprompter. But those mistakes, of course, are minor, and I can cut them out quite easily, and there's actually a structure in the master interview with a script. So editing a 20-minute master interview was usually I was done in about 30 minutes. So in total, I spent about 2 hours and 30 minutes for editing the master interview when I was reading from a teleprompter. Now yesterday, it took me about an hour to do the master interview without a teleprompter. Of course, I didn't have to write a script, and the questions were provided by the AI, so I didn't have to prepare bullet points either. So let's say that this pre-production phase is about 5 minutes. It took me about an hour to film the master interview, but then editing the master interview, although I haven't yet completed it, I'm about at half point, I think it will take me in total an hour and a half. So again, I expect to be spending about 2 hours and 30 minutes for editing a master interview without a teleprompter. At most, it will take me about 3 hours. So give or take is about the same, about how much time I spend in both approaches. So it's not, I don't think it's a matter of saving time if you are looking to follow a specific workflow. I don't think you are making any time in either approach. Now, do I use bullet points for flexibility, or do I write out every word verbatim? As I said, I never used bullet points. I know some other content creators that are using bullet points, and they're speaking their minds off while having a proper structure, or at least a somewhat structure based on those bullet points, which makes the video flow better, I think. I haven't done so, and at least for me, it seems that the interview questions work better than coming up with bullet points. It's like I'm being interviewed by someone, so in an effort to appear and sound more natural, more conversational at least. Now, have I noticed a difference in overall efficiency? As I said, the editing process, the editing time isn't much different. The overall efficiency comes down to the fact that I seemed to enjoy much more to answer the questions without teleprompter rather than reading from the script the answers. Of course, I'll test that out today, this morning, once I get home and once I take care of some family business. Then I'll sit down in the same spot like I did yesterday and prepare the answers. Of course, this will take me, as I said, about an hour and a half, I think, to answer the questions that the AI provided. And I'm very curious to see how this turns out, because if the final interview video looks good to me, then I'll probably go back to using a teleprompter. That's the thing, if you don't try something, you can't really be sure. And no matter my experience that I'm sharing with you today, you can never know what fits in your workflow. But it's a good thing to know what others are doing, and because I have improved my skills based on what other people have shared online, I'm doing the same thing right now. Now, the teleprompter setup that I've been using have evolved over time. I began with a big teleprompter, a teleprompter that I could use a 10-inch tablet for the teleprompter. That was a teleprompter that I bought in 2017, and I used that with my mirrorless cameras, where I could place the camera behind the mirror and insert the tablet, an Android tablet, right under the mirror, so that I could read the script, and the teleprompter sits in front of the lens and no one sees what you are reading. Then about 2 years ago, I bought a cinema camera, and I couldn't use that teleprompter anymore, but that was just one reason to change the teleprompter. I found out that that teleprompter was quite big for traveling, and I ended up buying another teleprompter, a smaller one. You could say that it's a budget-friendly teleprompter, since it holds just a phone. Ever since I bought that small teleprompter, I never used the bigger one, and that tells a lot. I have also tried out this teleprompter in a vlogging format. I'm sure that you've seen vloggers online who are hand-holding their camera in the standard way of vlogging, pointing at them while walking, for example. That was also a struggle for me. When I was holding a camera, I had to think of what I should say, to say that in English, while I'm not a native English speaker, and at the same time film in public. So those were a lot of hurdles to overcome, and I believe that having a small teleprompter, even in public, would help me deliver the lines better. But of course, I had to also prepare 2 or 3 lines beforehand to read on camera. Although it does work, I never tried it in public. But that's an added bonus of having a small teleprompter. Another one is that I have carried it to my trips, to my travels, especially when we are visiting our summer house on a Greek island. And I can have my teleprompter with me and be able to record many more videos there. Whereas before, I would either bring the big teleprompter with me and taking up storage with us in our luggage, or don't even bring it with me, ending up not making that many videos, if any, in fact. So I believe a smaller teleprompter is much more flexible, and I don't really have the need to read from a big screen, since when I'm reading from a teleprompter, I'm sitting quite close to the camera. Now, how I'm controlling the script from a teleprompter. I have used an Android software before, an Android app that I paid for, and since I moved over to the Apple ecosystem, I am using a teleprompter app that there's a paid version of it, but I'm just using the free version. The free version of the app is more than enough for me. I don't really need any more things, and I control the script on the teleprompter with a gamepad, with a small gamepad, which connects to the iPhone with Bluetooth. I don't really need the added features in the paid version. The features in the standard version are more than enough and gets the job done. I've said before that I'm looking right or left to appear more natural, but at the same time I need to look straight in the camera to maintain a more natural eye contact. That's done automatically, I think, as I'm reading from the teleprompter, but the trick here is to narrow the script, the text that flows on the mirror, on the iPhone, as wide as the lens. What I mean by that, now this is a struggle as a non-native English speaker to describe that in English. When I'm reading from the teleprompter, I don't want to be reading a bit left or a bit right from the lens. I need to be looking straight into the lens, and I accomplish that by not having the text of the script appear on the phone from end to end, from one end to another end. There is an option in the teleprompter app that I can narrow the visible part of the script so that I read only in the part of the phone that's in front of the lens, so that I maintain the eye contact that is required for the viewers to think that I'm speaking to them. Now, as a Greek and a non-native English speaker creator making English content, does the teleprompter help with fluency and avoiding mistakes? Yes, I've noticed that I make a lot less mistakes when reading from the teleprompter, but I wouldn't say that I speak a lot more fluently. I appear a lot more robotic, and although I'm trying to read as fluent as possible, it's still written word. And since I'm speaking from a written script, there's no way I can come out as natural as possible. So I do think that speaking off the cuff in front of the camera makes me sound more fluent, although I'm not that fluent in English, as you can tell by now. Now, do I find it easier to structure my thoughts in English when writing them out first? Of course, it's much easier to have a structure beforehand. I can also move text around when preparing the script, compared to speaking on camera without teleprompter. That makes my recording life a lot easier. While yesterday, when I was recording myself without the teleprompter, I noticed that at times I was jumping from one topic to another as random thoughts were coming into my mind, and I didn't have actually the time. Well, I had the time, but I didn't want to pause many times so that I remained in a flow state when speaking on the camera, and then I could take the parts out during the editing phase if I needed something, if I thought that something didn't make sense to include in the final video. But at the time of recording, I almost never paused talking, as I wouldn't have if I was talking to a friend, if I was talking to a real person instead of a camera. Would I recommend a teleprompter to other non-native English speakers who struggle with on-the-spot articulation? Of course, I would suggest having a teleprompter, especially in the beginning, since even talking in the camera, in front of a lifeless lens, is intimidating by itself. And there are so many difficult things and hard things to deal with when you're starting out, that every tool that helps you get the job done is recommended. So the teleprompter will solve a few things, of course, add a few negative ones, like you sounding more robotic and less natural, but even pressing the record button is a struggle for the first time when you are facing the lens and you have to also think what you are going to say and how you are going to say how to say that in a foreign language. There's a lot to take there. So a teleprompter, I believe, can help, as it has helped me over the years, ever since I bought one. That resulted in me making a lot more videos, since I was confident enough to record myself and know what I'm going to talk about. After testing it out and trying to make the switch, I have faced a few unexpected challenges, like when not having a script, I ended up talking about things that I wasn't planning to because of the questions I was asked by the AI, and that was not really my intention. If I had already written a script, I wouldn't wander around topics. Another challenge that I faced was that I noticed that in the final master interview, I didn't look into the camera that much compared to the times I read from a teleprompter. So I was looking a lot away from the camera, like speaking to an imaginary human sitting right next to the camera. And I'm not sure if this comes off well in the final video. Other than that, I did enjoy the process of speaking on the camera without having a script, but it's a different beast to tackle. Each approach has its shortcomings and its benefits. Now, if I were a new creator, would I start with teleprompter or improvising at first? Now, this is a mixed approach. At times, when I was reading from the teleprompter, I had a new idea and tried and thought about improvising on the fly and adding my thoughts right there. But I rarely did that because I wanted to get the master interview recording done. I wanted to get the job done, and I felt that if I deviated even for a bit from the script, I would have lost my train of thoughts, although I didn't have any thoughts really since I was reading from a teleprompter. But even speaking from a teleprompter makes you think as you're really speaking like a robot. So I felt that I was reading lines without me thinking the lines. At the same time, I was thinking about other things. I have noticed that, and improvising might work for some. It hasn't for me. I want to go to the extreme, either trash the teleprompter and read word by word, or not having a teleprompter at all, and speak out my thoughts as they come. I am not an advocate of a middle ground in any part of life, really. I think that progress is found in the extremes. Of course, a teleprompter makes me sound a lot more clear, but at the same time it hinders authenticity. And at this time of age in content creation online, authenticity is the #1 priority. And it's going to be even more important in the upcoming AI world. That's why I'm focusing on my personal brand, really. And I have to come out as authentic as possible. Reading from the teleprompter doesn't achieve that. That's why I tried out the master interview yesterday without teleprompter in the first place, because I want to see how much more authentic I would come out on the camera. Now that I have done so, I believe I came out a lot more authentic without the teleprompter. And that was expected, really. Now, the impact on the workflow of both approaches on scripting, editing, and production time may be different, but in the end, the general impact is about the same. I lost time at some points, I gained time at other points, but what I noticed was that there's a different kind of joy in either workflow. On one hand, I really enjoyed writing the script and putting my thoughts on paper, and really know that I have a very well structured and refined script to talk on the camera. Yet when the time came to read it on the teleprompter, that's where the drawbacks appear. On the other hand, I enjoyed speaking on the camera without a script, without a teleprompter, but when the time came for editing that, I could see that I was struggling to speak in a foreign language and explain things as clear as possible. In terms of production value, I think that if I was a much better public speaker, I would end up without a teleprompter. But of course, whatever we spend money on, it adds to production value. So having a teleprompter, I think that is better results, at least in a better production, in a better end result. A teleprompter is also a useful tool to overcome language barriers, as I also use the teleprompter only for a few videos in my native language. I noticed that, of course, I was much better speaking in my native language without a teleprompter. I sounded a lot more natural, a lot less robotic, of course. I was moving hands, I was being a lot more conversational, and I think I seemed a lot more genuine. I was speaking my mind off. So speaking in a foreign language makes the whole process even harder. So teleprompter certainly helps in overcoming this barrier, but I think the next step is getting rid of the teleprompter and become a better speaker, even in my non-native language. Finally, what's the best practice when it comes in content creation? I really can tell that I'm just sharing my own experience. At this time, I'm practicing both ways until I find out what works for me best. I never expected me to speak in English without a script on camera. Now I've come to a point that I'm at least trying it out. I may end up not going that route, but as always, practice makes perfect. And if I hadn't practiced speaking both with a teleprompter and without a teleprompter in front of the camera, I wouldn't be here to talk to you about that. And of course, practice makes perfect. So the more I practice, the better I become. So, from Greece and from my morning walk that it's about to end now, see you in the next episode, which might also be from another walk of mine, depending on how this turns out.